Welcome everyone. In this video I'm going to go over everything toilet fill valves. We will install my preferred choice from Home Depot, but also during this video I'm going to show you some options how to repair your fill valve. I'll show you how to change out just the fill valve seal to fix my mom's toilet, which is really easy to do. Her toilet was making this real loud sound as it filled, in addition to not stopping. And this is a less expensive option that can be considered before a complete change out. But if you're here to learn all the steps on how to install a new toilet fill valve, we're going to do that too. I really feel simple toilet repairs like this should be part of Home Ownership 101. I assure you after watching this video, you will gain the knowledge and the DIY confidence to repair or replace your own toilet's fill valve. So let's go. Not always, of course, but most things you purchase, its warranty claim can give you an insight on its quality of build and materials. The least expensive Fluidmaster has a 5-year warranty, their high-performance one has a 7-year warranty, and there's nothing wrong with them and a great option. Now my fill valve of choice is made by Korky in the USA and has a 10-year warranty. On the packaging, they claim it has 2 times stronger materials than their 5-year model, which helps withstand harsh water, high pressure, and the number one reason for failure in my area, hard water. Let's go start to install it. So of course, the first step is to shut the water off. Don't crank down on it. Once you feel it getting close to being closed, just give it small turns until it feels closed. After you remove the tank lid, flush the toilet while continuing to hold the handle down to drain the most amount of water possible. Now I use a sponge if I have one available to soak up the last of the water, but anything like an old rag or a hand towel works too. The more water you remove from the tank, the less will come spilling out when you remove the fill valve. Or you can just use a bucket and let the water come spilling out. Next you unscrew to the left the toilet supply line. These are usually and should always be installed just hand tight. If not, you can use channel lock pliers to loosen. Then unscrew the old lock nut to the left and remove it. Again, these are usually and should always be installed just hand tight. If not, use channel lock pliers to loosen. Right here is when you're happy you took a few minutes of time to soak up the water in the tank so it doesn't all come draining out. And all that's left is to pull out the old fill valve. Now if you're installing an identical fill valve like this Fluidmaster, you want to adjust the height of the new one to the old one. You can just twist left and right to increase or decrease the height. The second way, which you would do once installed, is slide the lock ring up, and then you can adjust the height by just moving it up and down, then slide the lock ring back down, locking it into position, and then double check by lining them up to each other. I want to show you a few more tricks. You can interchange new and old parts. I once couldn't get a broken water shut-off valve to turn off, so with the water still on, I just cupped the water coming out of the shank still attached to the tank and inserted the new valve, and then secured the locking ring. You can also do this type of change out, of course, even if you can get the water off. You can also take off the top cap assembly by first unclipping the water level adjustment rod and twisting it counterclockwise to the right 1/8 of a turn and replace it with a new one borrowed from a new identical valve, reattaching the adjustment rod. Let me show you at my mom's house how I changed just the valve seal to repair her noisy fill valve real quick. So check out this annoying sound.
Want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? Guys!
You see how it's not shutting the water off as I lift the cap arm? It just continues to run with the water going down the overflow pipe. When I push the cap arm down, the annoying sound stops, but the flow of water doesn't. So again, of course, the first step is to shut the water off before attempting any plumbing repair. This valve seal is what we'll be replacing. Here's a cutout so you can see where it's located. You can pick one up in the plumbing aisle at Home Depot. I start by unhooking the lift chain from the flush rod, then unclip the refill tube from the overflow pipe. You don't need to, but I remove this cap so you can see inside exactly what's happening. I lift up on the sides and it pops off. Then with my left thumb I hold it from spinning as I turn the lever arm counterclockwise to unlock the cap assembly. You can alternatively push the float up and grip and hold the shaft so it doesn't spin, then turn the lever arm counterclockwise. Either way, once you remove it, reveals the valve seal you see here we will now change. I give it a rinse before I pull it out. By the way, sometimes removing and cleaning the mineral buildup in here can solve the issue, but I'm going to go ahead and change it out. You see me here, I just pick at it and peel it out, and here's what it looks like inside. I give the assembly a rinse before installing the new seal. You can use cleaning vinegar with an old toothbrush for a deeper cleaning. So as you can imagine, after seeing the removal, the installation is just as easy. You just install it, inserting the valve stem in the center hole of the valve seal and make sure it's seated correctly. Just give it a push around the edges. And make sure the valve stem is operating correctly by moving the lever arm up and down. Let's flush the fill tube next. I turn the water on slightly and use my finger to give it a wipe. The directions say to use an upside down cup to prevent the water from hitting the ceiling. I'm just joking, but I know just to turn it on slightly. Let's reinstall the cap assembly. You just put it back in the same position it came off on and press down as you turn it clockwise to the lock position. The top cap just snaps right back on. Next, I just clip the water level adjustment rod back to the lever arm. Then I reconnect the lift chain back to the flush rod. You have to be careful when you're doing this to an old plastic lever arm. Putting any kind of pressure on it could break it, so I carefully get it reconnected. Then I reinstall the refill tube clip back onto the overflow pipe, and then turn the water back on. Instead of waiting for the whole tank to fill before testing, I just pull up on the lever arm and the water now shuts off. I'm also not hearing that annoying noise. Let's see if the water stops filling on its own this time. If you guys are getting value out of this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to see more home DIY repairs like this one. So that worked, guys. The water stopped filling and the noise is gone. I give it one last test flush. Let's go back to my house and I'll finish showing you how I install the new fill valve. So that's something you guys can try before a complete change out. Just cleaning or replacing the valve seal. Okay, unpacking the korky fill valve. Let's go over a few required parts and how to adjust and lock in the height. It's different than the Fluidmaster. So in the directions they show you how to hold the fill valve, twist counterclockwise, and slide up to extend the valve. Let me show you. You just twist to the right and now it's free to be moved up and down and you can adjust the height. Then twist to the left and it locks into that position. You line up the line they call a rib with the pegs. Here it is in the directions. Let me show you how the tamper-proof accessory installs. You insert it with the triangle shape up, holding on the bottom part that sticks out, and insert it right where the rib and pegs line up. So the directions are saying this is optional for a plumber or property manager so a tenant can't tamper with it, but I would recommend practicing how this installs beforehand and always installing it. See how the pegs insert into the holes, locking it into place? And then to remove it, you just lift up on an angle and pull it out. Now for the refill tube, you insert this metal clip into it. You just push it in like this. I didn't push it in all the way, but you'll see me fix it later. And it just attaches to the flush valve overflow pipe. Now this plastic clip is for certain Kohler towers. Here in the directions it shows you how you would use it to attach the refill tube. And also in the directions it shows you how to install a Mansfield model. And this is the mounting nut, and if you read it, it says this side up, showing you which way it goes with the bevel side up to the tank. And it just simply screws on like this, always hand tight, never use pliers. Now real quick, let me show you how to take the korky fill valve apart in case you want to service it like I showed you with the Fluidmaster. First pull off the refill adjuster from the fill valve. Then you pull and lift out from the middle to remove the top cover. Then you squeeze together the float arms on the top of the float to remove it. Next, hold the body of the valve and turn the cap assembly 1/8 of a turn clockwise, unlocking it, and lift, revealing the red diaphragm, which can be rinsed. With korky valves, you just buy a whole replacement cap. This one's from Ace Hardware and in my area has to be ordered. There's none on the shelf at the hardware stores. You can also remove the supply tube from the valve and then pull the white strainer out of the supply tube, giving it a rinse. It's worth a try before replacing the whole fill valve. But I personally just go ahead and replace the whole fill valve if it fails many years later. After reinstalling the supply tube back in the valve body, you place the cap assembly in the exact position it came off. Then I use my fingers in the area where you see the clear tube, grab the body of the fill valve, and I push down slightly, twisting it back on, making sure it's aligned this way. Next, you reattach the float arms to the valve body by pinching them inward and clip them back in place. Move the float up and down to make sure it moves freely and not scraping the side walls of the float chamber. Then you would just reattach the cover, finally reconnecting the refill adjuster back onto the valve. And that's how you would service it by cleaning or replacing the cap. Let's finish installing it. Now to set the height without the exact replacement, I'm taking note where the water line lands on the fill valve. It's clearly marked on the outside of the float chamber here. Then I place it in a tank to see how it lines up. You most likely want to align it with the water line marking on the tank and about 1/2 inch or so from the top of the overflow pipe. It explains it here in the directions. It also shows you the proper level for tower style flush valves. So like I showed you before, you just twist it counterclockwise, slide it up guessing the height of the water line, then twist it clockwise to lock it into position. You place it back in the tank, checking how it looks. It's an exercise of trial and error. Let me show you a close-up shot what I'm lining up. The line on the float chamber to the overflow pipe to the tank. Now you have to make a choice whether to install the optional tamper-proof accessory now, if you're going to, or after you fill the tank testing the water level. I usually do it beforehand, hoping I'm guessing right. and then make sure you position the refill tube pointing toward the overflow pipe. Remember, the mounting nut needs to have the bevel side pointed up to the tank, and while you hold the fill valve in position with one hand, you just tighten the nut with the other. And then once you feel it getting tight, you turn it a few more quarter turns until you can't anymore by hand. Again, never use pliers. Then you screw on the toilet supply line, make sure you're not cross-threading it, and it screws on easy at first. And then once you feel it getting tight, you turn it a few more quarter turns until you can't anymore by hand. Again, never use pliers. Next, you need to cut the refill tube to size. So I clip it onto the overflow pipe and eye where I need to make my cut with the scissors to where it connects to the refill adjuster and make my cut. Then you just attach the tube by pushing it on, giving it small wiggles as you push it until you can't anymore. Then I noticed I never attached it fully to the metal clip. So I go ahead and push that into the tube all the way and reattach the clip to the overflow pipe. Now to turn the water on and test it out. And I already know, for my toilet and the flapper I have installed, I need to adjust the refill valve to its lowest setting. I just wanted to show you how you most likely will need to set yours on the typical 1/2 inch below the overflow pipe. But at that water level, my toilet does a double flush. So I go ahead and turn the water back off, flush the toilet, pull the tamper-proof accessory, lower the valve as low as it goes, reinstall the tamper-proof accessory, and turn the water back on. Make sure you check as it's filling that you have no leaks by looking under the tank, give it a feel for any drips. Then give it test flushes so you can see how everything is working. The next thing to consider is the amount of water coming out of the refill tube. The directions explain a process to mark the water level with a pencil in the bowl. Then after a flush, if the water level reaches the pencil mark before the tank is done filling, turn the dial counterclockwise to reduce the flow. I know there's way too much water flowing from my toilet and turn down the refill adjuster to half its flow. And then I check it during a flush, just eyeballing it. Don't skip this step because you will either have not enough water in the bowl or waste a lot of water filling it longer than necessary. The last thing I want to mention is when the refill adjuster is fully open, it directs 40% of the water to the bowl and 60% of the water to the tank. And that's your starting point before dialing it in. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and I gave you some DIY knowledge to save some money to avoid calling a plumber. Please remember to hit the thumbs up if you like this video and be sure to subscribe. Click on the playlist on the screen to check out my other DIY toilet repair videos. There's videos on how to replace a tank lever and flapper, how to repair a toilet flange that I did at my mom's house, and another how to change out a toilet seat. Thanks again for watching. Bye everyone.